There we go.
Right. Hello, and welcome to an overview of the Framework Checklist. It's our newest tool to support startup food co-op development. My name is Chris Dilley. I'm FCI's Director of Startup Support, and I'm just really excited to have everybody here and to get started on introducing this tool to you. Um, Regardless of who you are and what your background is, you are definitely in the right place. Very happy to have you here. We have developed this tool with a few specific audiences in mind. Definitely focused on the needs. Always FCI is really focused on the needs of actively organizing startup food co-ops. So I'll be prioritizing sort of answering questions from startups as as necessary. And then love having TA providers and development folks here and established food co-op leaders as they're able to attend as well. And so thank you everybody for being here today. We have a couple of goals or things you can expect to learn from this session. Um, Hope that you walk away knowing what the FCI Food Co-op Development Framework and Checklist are, how the checklist is organized to help you work through the framework stages, and how to utilize it in a more in-depth way in the stage that you're currently in. So, a few outcomes there just to keep in mind as we get started. All right, so let's start with a quick review of the framework itself. So when I say the framework, I mean the FCI Food Co-op Development Framework. We launched our action guide of that framework last year. And you may have seen some of this before, but I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page. So the framework itself is a guide to the essential parts of starting up a food co-op. So we think of it as a construction plan. And your co-op is going to be unique because your community is unique. Yet there are some really consistent elements that we want to make sure we're always um, ensuring are part of that planning process. So that's part of what this framework is intended to do is provide that kind of consistency. And it's definitely meant to be an organized collection of the best practices that food co-ops have experienced in their development to date. You all are actively learning in your communities about how to do this and how to make it stronger for the whole movement. And we continue to want to integrate that learning into the tools and the framework itself moving forward. So there's no one perfect right way to do this. We know that. Yet it's really helpful to have some kind of overarching understanding of how to do the process. And that's what the framework is really designed to bring. So the framework has four parts. Just quickly, vision is at the top. The resources are to the right side in the gold. I'll go through each of these a little bit more in depth in a minute. The areas of work are the sort of the bucket or the container around holding up the vision. And then the stages are the green, and that's what we progress through time. Um, so let's go in a little bit more depth on each of those. The vision is helping you identify what problem you're trying to solve for your community and for whom, and what the underlying values are that drive that. And out of that grows your business concept, how you come to market in a way that meets that vision and in a sustainable way. So all of that is sort of at the top for a reason. It's the North Star. It's the direction you're heading in. It's the reason for being. And then the resources, again in gold. This is what you're going to need to do the work of starting a food co-op. And you need to always be assessing the state of those needs, what currently in the stage or in the situation you're in is a predominant need, and then how to build your team and the pool of resources you have to make sure to meet those needs when you have them. So, and those resources are knowledge, people, and people is also a lot about capacity. Do you have the team in place with the right skills, but also the capacity? Community trust is a new resource to our understanding with this development of this framework. It's not new. We've always known, or it has always been there, and it's always been needed, but we're articulating it more clearly with the framework. Systems, and of course, money. Then the areas of work, the types of tasks that you will need to do and to be done often along at the same time, kind of in conjunction with each other. And that's really the focus of the checklist is sort of those tasks within these areas of work. So can't wait to dig into that part. And then, of course, the stages. It takes time to build a co-op to build a community asset like this, especially when you're building it intentionally at the speed of trust, right? So the stages are a tool to help you sort of understand the how things can progress over time and through time. So hopefully that's probably a not a lot of new information, but I want to lay that foundation because it really is critical to the way that we've gone about approaching developing the checklist. So let's dig in a little bit to the checklist itself. Um, the goals of the tool itself are to capture the current experience. This is the next step in a continuing effort by FCI always to scaffold and support and meet the needs of the food co-op development or the food co-op movement. And so we've learned a lot. We keep learning a lot. We're learning from you every day. And so how do we need ways to sort of like continue to update and integrate that learning. And this checklist is bringing sort of the most current understanding and learning that we have. And then we want to it's intended to give a step-by-step illustration. So I want to be really clear, and I've emphasized that word illustration. It's really meant that when we get into it, you'll see it's very detailed. And it's really meant to illustrate how a progression of tasks and efforts that you need to put in order to move your project forward with the best chance of success. We know that there's not one right way. Communities need to build their path themselves. And we thought it was helpful to illustrate in some detail the tasks so you can really dig in and kind of know what to do when and see what resonates with what's happening for you in your community right now. And of course, we're always working to flesh out so having launched the framework action guide last year and the framework itself, this is just a continuing effort to flesh that out and build more and more tools to support that as an overarching method of approaching food co-op development. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how the checklist itself is structured. The pages, I just happen to like that this rhymed. The pages are by stages. So the pages within the document itself, and I'm not sure, Mercedes, if you've had a chance to drop the link in the chat to the checklist, if you all don't have it available. Okay, thanks. But as you dig in, and of course I'll be going sort of through in detail in some of the pages and things. But as you sort of go into this 14-page document, you'll see each stage has a set of dedicated pages. And those are highlighted in green, and the big stage numbers are clear on them. We are currently showing stages 1 through 4, and I want to make sure to be clear that we are working on a checklist for stage 5. And that's the newest stage that has been added with the framework. That's the newest stage to our understanding of food co-op development, and so we have some work to do to flesh that out a little bit more and make sure that stage 5 has some meat on it as well. So we're working on that. Within each stage, you'll find this structure. Okay, so there's a structure of how at the beginning, the first page of the stage section will tell you a little bit about what conditions are in place when you kick off the stage, what's the situation you will find yourself in, and how do you know that you're beginning in this new stage. And then what can you expect? What work can you expect to be doing in that stage? So those two key pieces are on this the first page of every stage within the document. And then the second chunk of pages within each stage are the tasks. And this again is that illustration of the activities that can be done to achieve the needed outcomes for the stage. So, um, you'll have an understanding of how the stage begins and then what critical work you'll be doing during the stage. And then this is meant to illustrate those activities and really put some detail to those activities so that you know the work you need to do in order to get to the milestones, which is the last page in each stage. And that's how you know those are the outcomes. Those are what you know once you've achieved them that you're ready to move on to the next stage of work. Um, the last, or actually another part of how this is structured, is that the columns within the task set section are organized by areas of work. So here's how that kind of plays out. So we've got the co-op organizing, governance, and business development columns, and then below that, kind of cascading down, that's that list of tasks heading from top to bottom on the page is what you'll be focused on in terms of the specifics. And then, of course, at the beginning of each stage, you'll see this reminder that this is a recommended approach. This is from our learnings. This is important. This order and this process and these details are important from what we've learned from you all. So. Finally, structure-wise, there is a set of highlights. This is a tool that we've used. So there are these purple, yellow, and green highlights and different tasks within each section are highlighted with those colors so for example with the purple here, the purple is highlighting the checklist tasks that are related to vision, so you can see that they cross across the different areas of work, and they're meant to sort of like recognize that this work is it takes coordination across the whole effort, and communication across the whole effort to move those particular tasks forward. Very little, I think, in FUCOAB development is just like one person sitting alone in a room and doing things alone, right? This is a community effort, and it's important to acknowledge that. So that's kind of what that's intended to do, is connect those pieces. All right. So what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time now going in depth on stage one portion of the checklist. And so you can see the structure and action and get a feel for the level of detail that the tool provides. All right. So for example, stage one, convene and prepare, right? It begins when the co-op's exploratory team consciously decides that the cooperative model is the right one for the organizing, for organizing to meet their community's needs, and begins meeting regularly to move the development of the co-op forward. So what you'll be doing in stage one, again, this is organized by area of work. Under co-op organizing, you'll be educating yourselves and your community about what a co-op is, sharing the vision for a food co-op and collecting feedback on that, launching and supporting member ownership programs. So those are the specific tasks. Those are the specific types of things that you'll be doing under co-op organizing in stage one. Under governance, you'll be determining and developing decision-making and delegation and accountability processes and practices for yourselves as a steering committee and board. Ultimately, you'll formalize that vision that the co-op development or the co-op organizing team is working on. Formalize that, your purpose, your values, and your business concept with input from co-op organizing and business development. So you can see that you start to overlap into those other areas of work there. And then incorporate, ultimately, it's the governance task to incorporate and create a member ownership program. And then under business development in stage one, you're articulating your co-op's initial business concept informed by a preliminary market study, market analysis, that is, and a preliminary sources and uses budget. So you can see at this level, on this first like introductory page to the stage, really high level, like you've got seven tasks ultimately that you're working toward achieving in a big picture way in stage one. And then as we get into the next page, you'll see the level of detail again that you're drilling down into. So again, it's the areas of work across the top and the columns, and then it's a top down from top to bottom progression, starting at the top and working through the tasks on their way down. So for example, in co-op organizing and in governance, you're kicking off with sort of reading and talking about or discussing the guide to starting a food co-op. Get everybody on the same page and start to be aligned um, around what the work really is and will be. And then I'm going to stick with co-op organizing for this illustration. So then you're going to develop systems and engage the community with the goal of establishing community feasibility, which is an element that we need to be focused on in terms of one of the four areas of feasibility. So then there's examples: host community meetings, introduce the co-op and what it is, why we need one, get community input on a vision. You can see that's already highlighted in purple. You're starting to like work the work of vision development intentionally into the meetings and the community engagement from the start. And then there's even the level of detail of like collecting contact info and how attendees want to engage with the co-op going forward. Another task in this section is meeting with local leaders, explaining your vision for a food co-op and getting their input, getting their buy-in to the idea. And creating effective strategies and internal systems for external communication. So that's, a website, email list, social media, and so on, community engagement through meetings and surveys. Um, and then intentionally planning to post regularly on social media, publishing regular email newsletter with organizing updates, and setting up administrative support systems to track volunteer interest and contact info and so on. So you can see that like it's quite a level of detail to help you progress through your thinking and your approach to starting a food co-op. And each of the columns has that kind of level of detail. And so then I want to just look a little bit at the purple highlights. So as the co-op organizing efforts are getting input on the vision, the the governance work, the board or the steering committee is working on codifying or writing down that vision in a way that can be shared out, and then delegating to the business development folks to bring in some tangible data. This is where the preliminary market assessment and so on come in. Bring in some tangible data to help us inform this vision. So you're kind of like working to polish that and develop that through community feedback and through real data from business data from market analysis and so on. We do include a couple of bugs in here to remind you that if you have questions as you're doing the working your way through the checklist, not to hesitate to reach out. Email us at info@fci.coop. A couple of reminders through there. And then I want to note this green bar at the bottom. So through the stages, there will be a couple of sort of pause points where all the work that's been cascading down kind of pauses and you have a minute to reflect. So have we articulated our draft vision with purpose, core values, and business concept? If we have, then we're ready to start early feasibility work to learn how to make that vision happen and if the community will support it. So there's these green bars that will kind of like pause you, make sure that you're sort of all caught up to that point before you move on. And so moving on through stage one, you continue with the work of co-op organizing. And now you've actually received your preliminary market analysis and your done a preliminary sources and uses budget. And that is now informing the vision as well. You're continuing to be out in the community, talking about the vision, getting feedback on social media, on your website, and so on, and keeping the community engaged through email. And then at some point, all that work culminates in being ready to incorporate and start and launch your membership program. And that's another green bar across here. That's sort of like another pause point. So that's kind of the way that the task part of the checklist is structured by every stage, and that's specifically in stage one there. And then the milestones. So this is that sort of final checklist that you want to go through to make sure that you have accomplished all of the necessary things in this stage that you're currently in. So that's for stage one in co-op organizing. That's having established communication mechanisms that your membership program has launched with your first member owner campaign, and you've met your stage one member ownership goal. In governance, your vision is visible to the community. You've codified it, you've gotten it out there. The co-op is now incorporated, and your first member elected board of directors is seated. And then finally, the business concept and business development. Your business concept is articulated. You know sort of like what the foundation for your business plan is as you head into stage two. And then your preliminary market study has been obtained and aligns with that business concept so that you know that your vision and the business realities kind of line up. And so that's the way that each bisection, the stages, pages are structured. I have a little bit more. I want to talk about our ideas for you about how to use this framework checklist. In your organizing, and then we're going to open it up for a little bit of question and discussion, which I'm looking forward to. So let's first start with what we think are helpful ways to use the checklist. We think that it's very useful to build alignment, sort of like fundamentally important to build alignment within your steering committee and board around this, the work of food co-op development. And we think this checklist, because it's relatively approachable and digestible and is kind of like a hands-on tool, we think it can be really useful that way. So our thoughts are to integrate it into your regularly scheduled board meeting time, maybe dedicating, 20 minutes at every board meeting to review a certain chunk of the checklist from the stage that you are in. And then once a quarter, maybe reviewing the next stage, looking ahead and thinking what's the work that is to come. And then let's not forget to celebrate, right? When we notice that we're checking some stuff off, we got it done. Like let's cheer, let's raise a glass and be excited and hopeful for the future because we've accomplished some stuff, right? So I think it's really important to pause and celebrate too, and hopefully this gives you a lot more chances to do that, right? Instead of like, we finally got through stage one and we can cheer. No, look, we could check these things off this month, this is great. Big time for celebration. So other thoughts are to use the checklist as a way of educating the community. Maybe there's communication as a communication tool with member owners, maybe doing posts about items as you check them off, showing that you're following a process that is trusted and tested. Things like that, I think, could be very fun ways to also engage the community and build a sort of sense of collective ownership around the effort. And then I'm definitely interested to hear everybody else's ideas and thoughts about the way to use this checklist or ideas for using this checklist in your own organizing. So with that, I'm gonna open it up for questions and discussion and see what's bubbling up out there. And you can definitely unmute or raise your hand, however you wanna, whatever works best for you.
Got a comment in the chat, Chris.
Oh, I can't see that. All right.
Okay, I can read it to you if you want.
Thank you.
I'm coming to the FCI world from outside in the general development world, wondering why you would incorporate early before a business plan and pro forma is developed. I can keep reading it. So it says, since it opens up the cooperative and steering committee to IRS review, since they're now legally incorporated, I normally help to design before incorporation to ensure smart design and membership engagement.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. And I would say that um, I think the reason for that in part is because one of the elements of feasibility for food co-op development is this sort of community feasibility and ensuring that you do have the energy and um, interest in the community to actually put money behind the development work. So that's one of the thoughts that I have. And I think that, we do need to be obviously be prepared to be accountable to the IRS and so on through that work. But yeah. So, Jakey, did you have other things to add to that kind of?
I would say that yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's actually the accountability to the IRS and the review is just really simple at that stage, so we don't really see it necessarily as a barrier. But we have seen one or two co-ops decide to organize and even have people pledge that they were going to join the co-op, pledge their share, and then open it up all at once and see if those people join and finish their incorporation. So we have seen it done in that order.
Mhm.
It just doesn't create such a difficulty and barrier that we've felt the need to recommend it going that direction.
Thanks.
I think we've got a hand up.
Yeah. Yeah. Leah.
Hey Chris,
Hey,
I
hey.
just wanted to say this is incredible. Well, that's not all I want to say, but this is incredible. And I really want to thank FCI for putting this together. I think this is going to be much more accessible and digestible for the run-of-the-mill co-op member in a way that the other resources aren't. Not that the other resources aren't important, but we need to be able to find digestible and accessible ways to like share the work that we're doing and where we're going with everyone, especially when that's happening alongside even articulating why co-ops matter. So I really just want to express gratitude. Um, and I think another way that this can be useful is also because you have it split by the areas of work. It's
Yeah.
also a way to inform committee work that doesn't feel like you said, from a trusted source. And so like committees can also really like run with their areas of work. And I can see this working in a spreadsheet or a way, translating it to a spreadsheet in a way that makes the committee work flow together and be tracked consistently across all the folks who are putting in time and labor. So thank you so much for this. And I'm really excited to start using it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that feedback, Leah. And you're definitely hitting on some of the high points too of like that's hoping that the structure that's outlined here does help with your own internal structure and knowing how to sort of like delegate that work and share that load. So that's great. Thank you for that feedback. Appreciate it. Let's see. I see one
Yeah, so
question or
Miss,
hand up from MV. Go ahead. Yeah, Mercedes.
so the order is Miss V, you come off mute, then Lisa, then Dana.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think Miss V is MVSO3. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't recognize it as Miss V. That is my middle name. Hi, Chris, and hi, JQ. It's Michelle
Hello,
Saavedra from North End Co-op
Hey
in
there.
Waterbury.
Michelle.
Hi. Look, now I can ask you on the spot the question that I sent an email about, the revisiting the market study.
hmm
So just to reiterate for everyone, we are, excuse me, I'm sorry. Um, we had a market study done a year ago, and it was positive. It was, uh, a go for it. It changed. We thought we would have a bigger footprint, but it kind of changed footprint a little, which is fine.
Hmm.
But since that time, there have been two other uh, grocery markets that have opened, two other large ones. And what we're struggling with is whether, and it actually is impacting the confidence of the board and members as should we go forward. Is it still valid to say that the access to fresh produce within a certain parameter is not available?
Mm.
So uh, we're struggling with deciding, and we have reached out to the analyst who did the previous market study. He did tell us, that's fine. He would do it again and amount. But what is your take on it? Should we go forward and have another one done, or should we stand our ground on what was done? What do we do?
Well, first up, we'll take this real quick because this is a different topic, but this is a really good stage two question in the
Oh, okay.
checklist.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Sorry.
You're okay. I'm just going to point out to those watching. This is a stage two checklist question. And it's really going to depend on your situation. We definitely should plan a time to talk, but you can't, if they're within your trade area that was defined in your first market study, it's absolutely going to impact sales and you need to know how much. So the reality is to have any confidence going forward, if it's in what's considered your trade area in that first market study, thumbs up, you pretty much need to get that revised.
Okay. Thank you very much. And the reason I'm not on camera is my camera's not working, but
Don't worry
thank
about
you.
it. You want to
Thanks
discuss
for
in more
being here.
depth, reach out. We can talk offline.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. And then Mercedes, did you say Lisa's a question in the chat was next?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Lisa, I see your question there. What's the difference in the framework checklist and the framework action guide? So the framework action guide, which we launched last year, was designed to really bring everybody along to our new understanding and new way of approaching food co-op development, moving from the 4 and 3 model to this framework. So that's like the overarching container for how we're understanding and moving forward with co-op development from here. And so then the checklist is really within that framework structure. It's designed to be a tool that's used to help execute on the overall framework work of developing a food co-op. Hope that makes sense. And Dana, it's to you.
Hello. Good to see all of you. And also, I just want to reiterate 100 times Leah's thanks to everyone that was part of the process in developing this. I know when you launched the action guide last year, one of my first questions was, is there any way to kind of put all of this stuff that we need to be doing into a checklist? And you did it. So thank you so much for that. Um, and I also wanted to comment that I really like the way the layout and the framework of the checklist is structured in those areas of work, because I think there's so much that is done kind of simultaneously, and there's so much sort of, I don't know if intersectionality is the right word, but connection between all of the different areas of work that need to be done. It's nice to be able to sort of see columns to know you got to be doing things in these sort of areas, but to also see how kind of they may be happening simultaneously. And when I saw that green bar, it kind of also was an opportunity for me to sort of think about those reflection points. And it does kind of tie back to, was it Ms. V that was saying, what about our market study? Now things have changed. And I guess my question is, within those sort of reflection points, I'm kind of envisioning, having been in a co-op that is now pretty much stage 4, all the work that we've done and all the kind of backtracking that we've had to sometimes do. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if it like is the intent of those reflection points also supposed to be kind of, in a flow chart, when you've got, if this is yes, move
Mhm.
forward in this step. If this is
Mhm.
no, move forward in that step. I'm trying to kind of like
Yeah.
understand the intentional use around those reflection points, and what if you haven't done some of it and you have done some of it. Because I know one of our big questions as startup co-ops has always been, how do we know we've done enough in a stage to feel like we're ready to move into the next stage? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it does make sense. I mean, it is, It is a complex process, and so it's just inherently a bit of a swirl, this work, especially because we're doing it as a collective, right?
True.
And so, I think the way that we're organizing this checklist could have it seem deceptively linear, and I know that it's not always that linear. But I think I think reflection point is a really nice to say that those green bars, that is meant to be a reflection point and say, have we really do we feel confident that we've done the important work to be able to say we're ready to go ahead and incorporate or ready to go ahead and choose this location or whatever stage you're in. And I think the more granular nature of the tasks that lead up to that really it's meant to be able to provide a tool of self-assessment, right, and be able to dig in a little bit. And I don't think that having nothing is going to feel like 100% confident surety, right? I mean, it is like it's just there's a certain amount of faith that always is going to have to be part of this process. But my hope is that the specificity of those tasks will allow for people to like do a little bit deeper self-reflection to see how they're feeling. I don't know if I'm answering your question though. So.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like those are really, for me, kind of like stopping points where you
Mm,
really shouldn't be moving on unless you feel really confident about all the work
yeah,
that is above that bar.
yeah, yeah.
And I haven't actually looked at it. I'm assuming they just kind of, those columns kind of keep continuing on to the next page and the next stage and what I'm.
You got it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and some of those are sort of more critical moments than others, right? Are we ready to incorporate and launch membership is a less risky bar to say yes to if you're really not than signing a lease, for example. Right? That's a much higher um, hurdle that you need to take more seriously. So, and it does progress like that through there. But yeah. Thanks for the question, Dana. I appreciate it. Um, and JQ has an aside to you in the chat there. And then Ty, thanks for popping up in the chat. I see kudos, question, and comment. I would love to have you unmute and pipe in.
Yep. Yeah, actually, so my kudos is, this is just want to compliment FCI on putting this together because the tool is really awesome. I think it's really it's a good engaging tool to use. And I think it could really help bring a lot of our resources that we have or don't have, try to, to get people more engaged with it and allow our board to do more as well too. So I'm really excited to put it to work. Um, my question was about stage 5. I'm not sure what that is, and that's probably more of a closing question. But what is stage 5?
Yeah,
And
that's an important
share some more.
question, Ty. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah. So stage 5 is the co-op is open and stabilizing. So
got it.
yeah, so open and then trying to see if they're hitting the sales, if the vision and the execution are lining up, and the result is sort of like a movement into it being established after stage 5.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I appreciate it. All right. Any other questions or comments? And then yeah, Juliet. Hello, Juliet.
Hello, hello. I would just like to echo all of the praise and uh, gratitude for this tool. I think it's very useful. And you had asked if there were some ideas for how to utilize it.
Yeah,
So one thing that occurred to me is, say hopefully you have a newsletter that goes out maybe monthly. It could, maybe take one of the current activities that you just want to highlight and show people what you're working on, and then maybe one, two, three, or a handful that might be on the horizon that you hope to be working on, just as an opportunity to share with your members or the community that
yeah,
there is progress happening. There are things that are being worked on. And so it's just like a communication piece.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. And I also just want to appreciate to the group that Juliet was helpful, really helpful as a reviewer in this process as well, and does co-op development um, in the Colorado area. So thank you for your help on that. And then kind of along those lines, I see Lisa's comment in the chat that the checklist can be helpful for potential funders. And I mean, when I see that comment, Lisa, I think hopefully that it would bring a sense of confidence to funders that you're working a process and a plan, that it's a tested process. Is that the kind of thing you were thinking of? And feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. And even on grants, we've already uh, uh, encountered this when, if you're applying for grant funding and they want to know sort of the timeline of your project. And for us, the project is building this co-op. And they want to know like your budget in year one and year two and year three. And so you can tie those a little bit to the milestones and the stages, to sort of show, well, we're going to meet this, and then we're going to move on here, and we're going to we've also encountered this when, as you know, we have a site on the table and the developers are pushing us to sign an LOI and they want to know the timeline, So, well, when are you going to be ready to sign a lease? Well, we can't sign a lease until we've checked off these these tasks
Yeah,
in stage one, and then we're going to move to stage two and check. But it's not intuitive for people sort of outside this, and I think it really shows that you can't, even if somebody dropped that 4 million that we need to raise on our doorstep, it's not, it doesn't mean that we're ready to
yeah.
move. Yeah.
That
So
is
thank
great.
you.
Thank you for that illustration. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Great. Any other questions or comments or ideas of how to use the checklist?
I'll just add an idea, Chris, that being further along in the process, I know that some of us on the board have felt like maybe we've missed some steps along the way. So as a co-op looking at this, not at the very beginning of stage one, it would be helpful for us as a board to go back and kind of say, all right, let's review our history and our process. And have we done all the things that we need to do? Is there some big missing gap that we need to go back and address? And I think that would be very helpful to our co-op.
Cool. Yeah. I think that what you bring up there too, Dana, is that sense of over time hearing and being part of co-op development processes where you start to feel stuck and you're not sure why you're stuck in a particular spot, right? And this feels like it does give you that chance to let's go back and review the checklist and like see if we've got some areas in the checklist that we feel like we really didn't dig into as much or do as much as maybe we need to now, especially feeling this challenge with community engagement or this challenge with the funder relationship or something like that. So yeah, thanks. Um, I see a question in the chat from Tom. How should we establish our economic goals? I have like a couple of thoughts there, Tom, but it's based on my assumption of what you mean. So I just want to invite you in to clarify. So there's a couple tools is early on. The first tool that I think you use in order to sort of determine your financial situation is the preliminary sources and uses template. And so that's going to help you understand for the size of project you're either considering or starting to hone in on based on your preliminary market assessment for that size of project. What is the cost going to be of that? And then there's a part within that that helps to stage that out in terms of the five stages and when you're going to need what cash for what. And so that's I think a really helpful tool for that. And I just open it up to you to say, is that kind of addressing your question or is there something else?
It is. We've had a couple of meetings now and gotten very good response from the community, and have begun to establish some of the other initial steps, and a website and a social media presence. Our uh, steering committee has met a couple times, but I feel like we still need some guidance in terms of how to bring it to the next step, how to take it to the next level. So going back to this guide, I think is going to be helpful.
Right.
Um, and I found that being the primary driver in this, I feel the need to disseminate some information, or bring more people on board in order to keep the momentum going.
Mm.
But that question in particular was one that's kind of baffled me. I mean, how do you establish those levels of
Yeah.
expectation around the economic model?
Yeah.
So I will go back and look through the guide again. Um, I've relied to some degree on the other nearby co-ops, asking them for guidance on how to work through the startup process. And
Mm.
uh, they often steer me back to your organization. So hopefully this will um, get us another foothold in what we're trying to do. Um,
Great. Yeah. And what co-op effort are you with, Tom?
we're in Casanova, New York, upstate New York.
Okay.
Um, and we've reached out to Mohawk Valley and Newark Food Co-op in Delaware.
Mhm.
Um, so they've both been helpful, but it's hard to get people to input because we all have very busy lives, and they've got their jobs and activities. So I want to rely to some degree on the good nature of other people, but on the other hand, you can only do so much. You can only expect so much.
Yeah.
So we do have interested parties here in town, people who've said they want to be involved, but they've got limited business experience, or um, it's not clear how they would slot into the steering committee. So
Mm.
I know that's a different question altogether.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, and definitely feel free to reach out to Chris at fci.coop if you want to talk more in detail about those things.
Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate
You
that.
too. Yeah. And then I see Ty, you came off mute. Just wanted to see.
Oh yeah, I was going to comment about leaning into other food co-ops if they're, I guess, geographically closer to you. One of the things, since we're in Pennsylvania, we're not too far from the Pittsburgh area, and East End Food Co-op is a 45-year-old plus food co-op, and they have over 17,000 members. And the general manager there, his name is Tyler, has been really gracious with helping us. I was even fortunate enough to have a group of kids just before the new year from my local high school go up for a field trip. We took about 16 kids for a field trip, so they got a behind the scenes look at East End Food Co-op, how they operate, what they do. Had a nice presentation afterwards. But but additionally, Tyler agreed to help me with like potential store design. And so, he was a part of a couple discussions, and I even did a walkthrough with the architect we've identified to work with to help us. And so they've been more than gracious in helping us figure certain things out. So if you could do that, definitely lean into any local architects, because I'm pretty sure they got some good practices, bad practices that if they could do it over again, they would. If they had a clean slate like you're trying to create. And so definitely lean into that and obtain that knowledge.
Great. Thanks, Ty.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Thanks, Ty.
for the comment in the chat. It's nice to have you here. Yeah. Any other questions or comments that people want to make? All right.
Chris, this
Well,
is Kenny. I
hi,
really don't
Kenny.
have a comment necessarily or a question. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I think we're in somewhere in that stage three, and I think the day to day of getting things done, gets to be kind of piled up, and we put our heads down and go to work every day, and then we kind of drift away from some of these things, trying to get other work, trying to get the work done. It seems like, but we can't forget these. So I'll be bringing it up that we really need to get back to discussing these things a little more often. And I like the comments I heard from a couple of people about putting it in the newsletter, or presenting this kind of information to the funders and those kind of things. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I will take a minute and thank some folks too. So, want to really appreciate, we have a framework editor team, Dr. Angela Sales, Michelle from the Institution for Financial Unity in Cleveland. We got Michelle Schrei from NCG, National Co-op Grocers, Heather Lazikas from Seven Roots, and James Morrell from Colluminate. They, with JQ and I, are on this framework editor team, and it's really this team that helps to take ideas and turn them into the next step tools for the, especially related to the framework itself. So we appreciate them very much for their time and effort in this, and the hours they dedicated to discussion and reviews. And then also thank you, of course, to CDF, the Cooperative Development Foundation, and to National Co-op Grocers for some funding support for this project. As you're using the tool and progressing through your work, definitely don't hesitate to reach out with questions, suggestions, edits, and so on. Mercedes dropped my email in the chat as well. This is a work in progress. It's going to be polished and made most useful over time, thanks to any of your reflections and input and learning and experiences. So please don't hesitate to share. And then, yeah, just finally, thank you. And the video will be made available in the coming weeks on our YouTube page, and you can also find many other valuable resources there too. So thank you so much.